Holy Spirit. Almighty, merciful God, we ask you to send your Holy Spirit upon us that we may learn more about your miraculous powers and learn how miracles are brought through you. We ask all this through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. So, the first thing that we'll kind of talk about is, I'm going to make the assumption that people know what a miracle is. You know, it's basically something that goes beyond the natural scope. So basically God intervening in a certain situation. Examples we know, we can look in the Bible. Burning bush, the miracles of Moses come to mind because those are the kind of big ones. And the big, large one, the resurrection from the dead. That was kind of a really, really big thing.
Yeah.
But we also see other minor miracles in the Gospels, in the Old Testament, casting out of demons, water into wine, which is a small miracle for the Son of God. A little bit, but good. And then we have the various other miracles that we see, like when, I can't remember which person, but they were beaten, killed, thrown into a pit, and they brushed themselves against the bones of a prophet, and they immediately were healed and got back up. So, various things, miracles like that. So to have that in the idea, an apparition is something that, that's what it sounds like. A vision, either physical or internally. In fact, I'll go over, make sure I got here. I actually have a list. Just the definitions of each one. But, anyway, so what I'm going to talk about first, I'm looking at it, it's right there. Where is it? Okay, so, now, the understanding of the church is we have to first look at private and public revelation. Public revelation we know is the teaching of the church that's been completed. It's basically the book has been closed. We're done. Here's the deposit of faith. Things may take over time and grow, meaning that we understand more about it and we get a fuller meaning of it. We've done this with many different things. But over time we learn, digest, but it's nothing new. Whenever something is proclaimed, say the Immaculate Conception, it's always been taught, but it never been proclaimed in an infallible way. It has always been part of the deposit of faith. And the main reason it was proclaimed is because people were doubting it, and people were going off on wild little goose chases that ended up into heresy land. So he wanted to stay out of there. So public revelation is what's been taught from the beginning. What we got from the Gospels and what we refer to as the deposit of the faith. Now, private revelation is something, as it sounds like, private. It's an understanding that God continues to reveal himself, not in a way to correct things in the past or things like that, or say, oh, you guys got it wrong on this one, I'm here to so that you know that this is wrong. I give this example because it's written in the documents. An example of such revelations where people, it says, God continues to reveal himself to individuals, not indeed for a declaration of any new doctrine, but for the direction of human acts. That's St. Thomas Aquinas, meaning that it's for the good of the person, privately, or for the good of a specific situation, or the need of the time. Now, Mary always has a way of showing up when she's least but most needed. Least expected but most needed. For example, before or at the moment of the declaration of the Immaculate Conception, Our Lady of Lourdes, I am the Immaculate Conception. It wasn't you got it wrong, it was a confirmation. It was like, okay, I'm going to show you this. And so it's an edification and not a change in doctrine, not a new teaching, but a reiteration and an assistance. Now, as it goes on, we get examples. It says, for example, alleged revelations which are supposed to improve upon, like I said, that or correct an entire part of public revelation. If somebody says, oh, this part of the Bible is wrong. If an angel appears before you as light, do not believe him if he starts preaching another gospel. Paul tells us that. Such revelations include Muhammad in the Quran, Joseph Smith in the Mormon Bible, and other New Age mystics, psychics, and the like. So you have somebody saying, I found this book, and it was given to me by an angel. Didn't it say in the Bible not to take anything from angels like that? Y'all were all wrong. The church was wrong from the beginning. But we're good now because I found this golden book that you will never see it again, or you actually will not see, because I can only see it. Oh dear, the books have disappeared. Don't worry, it was mistranslation. I'll get the book back. The angel showed me, and it came back again. I make fun just because it gets kind of weird when we go down the road. Muhammad, the thing about the angel appearing to him, giving a new revelation. The Christians are wrong. Everything the Bible is wrong. Do this what I tell you, because it is right. Angel of light appears, a new gospel. History.
Father, wouldn't John the Baptist fall in that?
No.
No.
Because he was fulfillment.
But he didn't know, John the Baptist didn't know that Jesus was the Christ.
Well, he knew from the beginning before. Remember, he
He
left
did.
he left in Elizabeth's womb, acknowledging he was the Christ.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
because he knew beforehand. He's like, yeah, my cousin, he's the Messiah, I know. I'm out here in the desert eating bugs, but he's the Messiah. So, yeah, it happens, yeah. So, in this, we're going to talk more about private revelation. The more I want modern in the sense that post-biblical things that have happened, and I'll get into a little bit of that. Now, some private revelations, however, do, like I said, with Our Lady of Lourdes, bring about a fuller understanding or start us to ask questions that brings us to a fuller understanding. We have this with revelations from private revelations. I don't know how to start with there, but revelations from St. Margaret Mary Alacoque in the Sacred Heart. The devotion had been around for a long time, but she added a new theological understanding through private revelations. And that understanding of the Sacred Heart of Christ and the promises and the various things that come with that. Now the promises part can, as we know as Catholics, when we have private revelation that's been approved, we don't have to believe everything we're not obligated to believe. But most often than not, it's better and it's good for our edification because it teaches and we learn from certain things. Now, because also private revelations, for example, I bring up St. Margaret Mary Alacoque or also Our Lady of Fatima. It also has the ability to bring people who are doubting their faith closer. So it's, like I said, for the person individually. Many people, the miracle of the sun. We had the Portuguese atheist government that was kind of getting a little bit seeped in from various groups from all over. Thank you, Spain. And then just kind of getting in there, and then the great miracle, and everybody was just, what was that? That was God's work through Mary. Oh, start praying. It's one of those moments of conversion, bringing things back. So when we have those things, those would be approved private revelations. Like I said, it doesn't add anything. It doesn't negate anything in the public revelation. It doesn't deny doctrine, but it does give us maybe a different take on a doctrine that's within the understanding of the church. So if all of a sudden somebody said something that was just completely theologically incorrect, no. So this is where I get to the understanding of revelations in and of itself, meaning that they have to go through different channels. We have to investigate. Now, I'm mainly going to talk about when I say revelations, and I'm also including miracles, apparitions, because they kind of go hand in hand. So if Mary shows up, it's a miracle, and it's an apparition at the same time. So it's one of those things right there. Now, when we look at private revelation, we have to understand that not every private revelation that's given is going to be true, meaning that it wasn't a true. It may be an apparition, but not maybe of the holy variety, or it might have been a trick of the eye, or something that happened, which is why we have a system to do with that. So I can change section. Okay, there's actually a little document discussing on how you investigate these things, because we've had Approved miracles in our own diocese. One of the Paulists who were buried here and asked for intercession, and they were healed. I can't remember the Paulist off the top of my head. I'm sorry, Paulist people. But our local bishop investigated it. And the way we investigate things, that's what I'll be going over at this point in time. So, in general, I'm playing, and please tell me, ask questions if I'm just like, I am all over the place, but, eventually I do get somewhere. But the understanding of how this works and how do we investigate miracles, apparitions, and the like. Okay, we have, like I said, there's a document, but first it starts with a local bishop. Okay, let me get a little bit further. Say Susie Q says that she saw a vision of Mary in her backyard. Okay, so this is becoming a little bit more understood. People are kind of hearing about it. Mom's concerned that Susie Q is seeing stuff in the backyard. We don't know what's going on. So, first, obviously, we get, the priest will come in and say, okay, you see it? Just kind of, there's a little bit of listen. But we start at the very lowest level and we work our way to the top. First, you have the diocesan bishop. He can initiate the process on his own, or on his own initiative, or at the request of the faithful. So more than likely it's going to be someone that's happening. A priest may be like, okay, this is happening over here. We might want to look into this. So this begins, and they investigate the facts, information they have available. They can also ask for the assistance of other people in the hierarchy or other theologians and things like that to assist, which normally happens. Because most people don't have experts in certain things inside their diocese. The second part is also the a national conference of bishops can begin an investigation as well. A national conference of bishops may intervene if the local diocesan bishop refers it to them, saying, okay guys, I can't deal with this one, I need the group. Also, if it has to do with more than one diocese. So if bishops are noticing that, okay, there's something happening in, middle of nowhere, Missouri, they're coming from Kentucky, they're coming from all the way from Kentucky to come see this, or they're coming from, somewhere in Kansas City, Kansas, different places. So including more than one bishop will get involved, or the conference of bishops would get involved to investigate what's going on. Or if the event is something very important nationally. It may be happening in, Bishop Joe's diocese, but it has implications nationwide. Sort of like Our Lady of Guadalupe, it has something that's a bit different than just CCQ having her own little private revelation right there in the spot. And it's because it's affecting the entirety of the nation at that moment in time. The final one, which is, as we know, the top one, is that the Vatican or the Holy See, the Apostolic See, can intervene and request a local bishop to investigate, or they can form a group to do it themselves, or they can be requested directly by a group of people who are, wanting to know what's going on. So again, say Susie Q is seeing a vision of Mary, and Mary's telling her various things, and people start gathering, and more people start gathering. That group of people, will have people in it more than likely who are like, okay, is this really real? Is this heavenly or demonic? Or is she crazy? What's going on? And then that can be requested if the diocesan bishop decides he doesn't want to investigate it, or it's not worth his time.
With this investigation, is it just the Catholic Church only, or do they get lay people? Or do they get psychologists involved, and maybe
in
medical
the understanding
people?
of, you mean non-priests?
Yes.
I'll go get to that. Just get to the 3 2. I get there.
Father, there was a TV show that showed that in the Vatican that there actually was a priest in charge of doing these kinds of investigations. And played rather bluntly, the priest there was about as unpriestly as you can imagine. But my point being, is there such an office in the Vatican of someone who is an investigator?
They actually more closer connected to the causes of saints in that area. So most of them have to do with saints. Yeah. And so, yes, I'll get into the...
Somebody that's not employed by the Catholic Church, do they get people on there?
They have to be faithful Roman Catholics, but they can be a psychologist, a physicist, a doctor, somebody who studies astrophysics, all this fun stuff, natural sciences, social stuff, all that stuff. So they have to be faithful Catholic for the first parts, but also it can also include, like, if somebody's been healed, it's usually easier if it's an atheist doctor or something like. They've been healed and I can't tell why. It's not a miracle. There's no such thing. We kind of have those various things, but we have to look at it in the different ways. So in general, there's two different types of criteria we look at. One is called, we have positive criteria and negative criteria. Okay, and both are used basically almost like a checklist in a way to, on the goods, okay, this is a good one, or, check good, check good, check good, oh, that's not good, kind of this way. So the positive criteria one is moral certainty. This means the certainty required to act morally in the situation or in doubt, meaning that, I'll read the thing and I'll explain. Moral certainty, the certainty required to act morally in a situation of doubt, or at least the great probability as to existence of a private relation at the end of a serious investigation of the case. Meaning that we see something and we can say, yeah, we need to investigate this. We need to look at this more. Meaning that there is something there. It's not just, oh, there was a glimmer of light. There was a reflection off of something and we thought the little girl died of something. So that's just basically, is there a possibility of something existing? Is there a possibility that this is an apparition? So it's like, okay, is this possible, or is somebody off their meds? One of those things. The second part is evaluation of personal qualities. This is of the seer or the person, or who the miracle has to do with, or the apparition has to do with, or relation. That often gets into saints, which gets tied into the evaluation of their works, their diaries, or relations. Like St. Faustina, when she was being looked at canonization, her works were scrutinized backwards, forwards, upside down, sideways, to make sure that everything was correct. Because if there were things that were really just like, oh wow, this has really gone off the rails, you're not becoming a saint. You were nuts. But this is where that begins. Evaluation of personal qualities of the person in question. Mental balance, honesty, moral life, sincerity, and a very, 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 very big one, and this will always send up a red flag if it's not followed. Obedience to church authority. That is a big one. I was told by a bishop who actually investigates this stuff, is it says if they ask them to do something, and just kind of cool it for a bit, and they begin rebelling, that's a big red flag with laser shooting out of this. It's like, danger, 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 danger. I will not submit. The devil, it's like da 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 da. So that's a big one we have to look at. So again, evaluation of personal qualities of the person in question: mental balance, honesty, moral life, sincerity, obedience to church authority, willingness to practice the faith in the normal fashion. Well, Mary told me to go take the Eucharist and dance around the altar and do this and then that. Obedience. Don't do that. No! This isn't true. This is your own imagination. It's that, it can be that quick. Because pride and everything that comes from God is obedience to the authority of the church at that time. Because we know, from Christ talking about this, and so on and so forth. So things like that. The third one is evaluation of the content of the revelations themselves. That they do not disagree with the faith and morals of the church, and freedom from theological doctrinal errors. That's kind of the obvious given. If somebody said, Mary told me that there's actually three gods, and the Trinity's three people, three gods. It's like, no, honey, I'm sorry. That is so. On that one's kind of very straightforward, and that one's pretty much very easy to get. Because most people who do have revelations typically are children, actually, or very pious, and I don't mean simple as in, simple, slow, whatever, but people who are just, maybe like in Fatima, children and shepherds. People who are simple in life, simple in piety. So, and then we have the fourth criteria. The revelations result in a healthy devotion and spiritual fruits in people's lives. Greater prayer, conversion of heart, or security result in fill in the blank. Now, just because one of these things is evident does not make it an apparition or miracle. Many things, you can have a couple of these things. Susie Q can be the most pious little girl in the world. She has a really active imagination. You know, checks out, you know, she's well balanced, she's not saying anything that's against the church, but after many, no, it's, you know, so it's kind of like that example. Okay, so we have those, the four positive criteria, we call them. And then we have negative criteria, which are glaring errors in regard to facts. Oh, Mary appeared in this tree here 5 days later. Oh, she appeared in this tree over here. Well, I thought you said that she was here that same day. Oh, no, I was mistaken. She was over here. Okay, so she was over here 5 days later. Oh, no, she was actually on that day, she was not there. She was actually over at my friend's, John's house, and she was standing at his tree. So, the understanding, okay, the who, what, whys, and whens, and wheres type stuff. Where did this happen? Because if you have a vision of something, you're going to be pretty good about where it happened at, for the most part. Okay, the second one would be doctrinal errors attributed to God, the Blessed Virgin Mary, or to the Holy Spirit, and how they appear and how we understand them. Meaning that the Blessed Virgin Mary appeared, and she has hooves and a tail. Say again? That there's a no. This does not come from Father Woods. I've learned this before. But there's an Irish saying that if you can't see Mary's feet, don't trust her, because the devil can't hide his hooves. It's one of those things. If Mary shows up with a tail and hooves, probably not Mary. That's not going to happen. Or if something is really wrong in the situation. Mary appeared to me as this grotesque, It's like, I don't think that was Mary. So we have to look at that, because that can either be demonic or just something that's wrong, with somebody's mind. Things happening of that nature. Also, any pursuit of financial gain in revelation to the alleged event. Meaning that I saw Mary, and I'll give you, $5 to come and see the spot where I saw Mary. Come on, you can't get in without the $5. No miracles without $5. Yeah, that was pretty easy. Gravely immoral acts committed by the person or those associated with the person at the time of the event. So, for example, if they're into the occult, Ouija boards, mystical stuff that has nothing to do with faith, or if they're living a very immoral life, these various things, that's going to be like, okay, so you were chanting to the goddess something, and then you had a vision of a lady. It's like, oh, I was praying to the goddess, and then all of a sudden appeared, and she said she was Mary, the Virgin. I think she was the Virgin Mary. It's like, this has happened before, I'm not kidding. I'm sure that she said that, and I'm sure that you thought that, but no. So, okay, we have that one. Then also psychological disorders or tendencies on the part of the person or persons associated. Meaning that, are they psychologically sound? Are they, are they not hallucinating? These various things, like I said. So making sure that everybody's, has their wits about them. And also this can be fit in, but it's not necessarily negative, but little Susie Q is 3 years old, or 4 years old. Incredibly, she says, yes, I saw her. I know I saw her. She has a tendency to be very over, her imagination is a bit much. And yesterday she said that her baby doll was talking to her. And she talks to her baby doll. Like, no, little dolly talks. She said this and this. So the understanding of that too. It's not that she's psychologically messed up, she's just a little girl. So these things don't get evaluated overnight. Now, I imagine if they come pretty quickly, it's like, oh look, my friend had the vision and they're twirling around, the vomit coming out of their mouth. It's so wonderful. It's like, You need a different person than me. This is not my department. It's,
Well, did I understand you to say that one of the negative things that they look at is if the person is a sinner?
if the person isn't, like, for example,
I'm thinking of St. Paul.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
had a-
yeah,
he
yeah.
Clearly got the
yeah,
miracle.
it was,
And
he
he was a
wasn't-
sinner.
yeah, it's, well, everybody's a sinner in.
Exactly, sure.
But meaning that gravely immoral acts
Yeah,
committed
he
of that
was
person.
too, yeah.
Meaning that they're visiting women of ill repute or something like that, or, somebody's doing some things ought not to be doing, or,
But again, he was-
things in that way. Yeah,
Paul was about as bad as they come.
yeah, but he wasn't,
He
shacking
was
up
followed
with thy
in.
neighbor's wife or something like that. He was a pious Jew to what he knew. And then God's like, hey. So, in that understanding, and this is after biblical, so we understand that part. But these are the criteria given by the church for what these things. Now, after the initial investigation, and all these, these things are kind of checked and looked at, there's another full further investigation of the facts and information by independent groups, different people who do this type of things, theologians, psychologists, like I said. So they take another fresh look at it as well. So, and then they kind of talk with each other and discuss and figure out what's going on. Now, the final approval can happen in different ways, and it can be yes, stamp, or it can be a I don't know, maybe stamp, or a definite no. So, for example, after an investigation, after the initial investigation, if occurrence meets the criteria of positive and negative, an initial cautionary permission can be granted that basically states, for the moment, there is nothing to oppose it, meaning that there's nothing bad that's happening at the moment. Susie Q sees a vision of Mary. She says, pray the rosary often for sinners. There's nothing bad. But we're not finished. We're still looking at it. It's okay. We're not going to be like, Susie Q, bad. You can't do that. Pray the rosary. That's good. That's wonderful. For the moment, it's not opposed. Everything's good. We're going to keep watching it, though. This permits public participation and devotion in regard to the alleged apparition. Ultimately, the final judgment and determination needs to be giving approval or condemnation of the event, meaning that eventually there has to be a yes or a no. So, Fatima, Lourdes, Our Lady of Guadalupe, obviously, yes. They are various ones that go throughout the world. They're ongoing, that happened like yesterday. Now, if Mary shows up in somebody's Cinnabon, no. Our Lady of the Cinnamon Pastries is not a thing. You've seen those before, yeah? I'm sure it's like, it looks exactly like, it's like, yeah. It's called pareidolia. We see things in it. Okay. So what happens is at this point, the local bishop has to approve it, because he's the authority in his diocese. Now, eventually, it can get to the higher echelons in the Vatican, and they can put like, okay, yeah, we're good. But typically, they keep it at the lowest level, depending on the situation. Like Fatima and Lourdes had something, it was a big thing, or Our Lady of Guadalupe, hundreds of thousands of conversions. Our Lady Fatima, the messages, hundreds of thousands of conversions. Our Lady Lourdes, miraculous healings, hundreds of thousands of conversions. Those are big. There's also things that people don't really even hear about that are very small, contained. Did you know that there is an apparition site in the United States? There's actually, I think, 2. Now, one was recently proclaimed, I believe it's, forgive me, it's in one of the cheese states. One of the milk and dairy product states.
Was it Wisconsin?
Yes, I believe, yes. So it was approved, but the local bishop approved it. The local bishop approved it and said, yes, this is where, it used to be called worthy of belief, and I'm going to use that because the other term is confusing, even for me. So he can say, this is worthy of belief. I believe you, we've investigated thoroughly, and typically, at this point, it's just stayed at the local level. There's no need to go any further. And the event happened, there was a revelation, a miracle, and then it ended, an investigation. Now, sometimes it can take a very, very long time. something that happened in the 1600s, just recently got stamp of approval in 2008. So it can take a long time, so we can be in that, I guess it depends on your time length. It doesn't give you the time length that needs to be approved or disapproved. But we see the various things that can evolve. Now,
Do you want to know here just a little?
oh sure,
Catholic
yeah, if you would
online?
give me a,
This came December 11th. It said, on October 9th, 1859, a year after the Marian apparitions of Lourdes, France, Mary, the Queen of Heavens, is alleged to have appeared 3 separate times in northeastern Wisconsin to Adelaide, Greece. So,
yeah,
it's near Green Bay. northeastern
Yeah.
Green Bay.
yeah, I'd say I told you it's near a cheese place.
What year,
The 1859,
So
is
they
when the
rec-
apparitions occurred.
Just recently it was approved within the past 5 years.
Mhm.
So
Because
that's
it's
local.
December 11th,
So local.
2010, so.
So that happened locally. Another one that's local and that people might not heard of, but it's very important, I think at least. Well, yes, we'll go with that and then I'll put that. One that's, anybody, go ahead. Anybody?
Yeah.
Yes.
So anytime then that is approved, does Our Lady have a name and like do all the names?
Typically she will announce her name, or it will be like Our Lady of Knoxville, because it happened in Knoxville, or Our Lady of,
Right.
whatever town, whatever village, or if it happened, over like Our Lady of the Lake here, So it's kind of one of those things, it's either named herself or it's named at place name. So it's kind of in that situation.
So anytime that there is a name for Our Lady, it is an approved appearance? Or sometimes like Our Lady of Good Counsel, Our Lady
Yeah,
of...
those type things,
Those are
exactly.
all-
And a lot of those things actually go to images painted, like Our Lady of
Mhm.
Perpetual Help is an image, but it's also considered a miraculous image. But goes through that in the past. But I'm looking towards in like recent things, a recent one in 1973, Japan. Anybody heard the Japanese one? Konnichiwa? No? Okay, whatever. I don't know the Japanese, that's about all I know. It's called Our Lady of Akita, Japan, not the dog. Our Lady of Akita, the town in Japan, where she appeared to a sister in a convent or a monastery. Yeah, and she gave messages, actually, and it was approved by the local bishop and also by higher echelon, by cardinals. One who became the Pope a little bit few years after all this stuff has been approved, Benedict. He wrote a thing on it. I will go through the entire history because it's you can look it up, and they also have it on. They have it EWTN library. Just click it, type in Our Lady of Akita, and it'll give you the lovely little summary here. But the messages were, it's basically when he was Ratzinger, he said that it's basically a Fatima sequel. It's almost the exact same thing as Fatima, except almost an update. So the local bishop very much approves of it, and very much has given the permission for people to go visit, to do pilgrimages and things like that. So we have one that not many people have actually heard of. And the first time I heard it, I was like, what? And then I read the messages and I was like, I better shape up. So there was a series of messages, private revelation that was given, and one happened to occur on October 13th, as we know, but in 1973. So we have the various, and they're basically, it is very important that you convey all this to your superior. Obedience, this must be conveyed. Like Our Lady of Guadalupe said the same thing. Our Lady of Fatima said the same thing. She was part of the Handmaids of the Eucharist, is what her group is called. Basically, she told pray the rosary, and it says every time in her apparition, my dear daughter, listen well to what I have said to you. You will inform your superior and do what they tell you. And then she gives the message. So we see this over and over again. I can't remember how many apparitions, but I very much ask you to go ahead and look this one up. Our Lady of Akita. I won't go into all too much because that could take an entire time. Yes, ma'am.
Father, I've been trying to find out the answer to this for such a long time. I don't remember. I do hope you know the answer.
I'll try.
In the letter of Fatima that was to be opened in 1960.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what language it was written in?
I would imagine it would be Portuguese, because it would be given to them, and maybe, I think it was Lucia,
Yeah.
or one of the, because she would have written in Portuguese.
But they were uneducated children, so we seem to have to take it as, so you think, you don't know.
Yeah, I'm not 100% on
Uh-huh.
that. Yeah, I would assume that it was Portuguese because that's what the children spoke. That it was in Portuguese. It may have been different how it was done, but that's, to my knowledge, that's what it was. I may be totally wrong, but I think it may be Portuguese. Now, another one that's happening, that's recent, so we got one that's been approved, worthy of belief. Take your pilgrimages going, next person wants to go to Japan, go to Japan. It gives me an excuse to go to Japan. Now, another one that is Our Lady of, or in Medjugorje, I should say. This one, like I said, we go through the various criteria, and since the very beginning, let me get to this part. And we also had the report come out in 2017. For this one, it says it is a negative judgment, unanimously. That May 2017, they showed an overwhelming negatively judgment of 0 votes in favor. This is through the higher echelons of Congregation of Faith. Cardinal Mueller, at the time, his doctrine, Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, also put into that as well. If in Medjugorje, also in October 2017, the direction of the CDF, Doctrine, Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, said that, I'll give you the statement. He gave us instructions for the United States, because I remember when this happened, because it was a buzz at the seminary, and people were just like, okay. They said, the Congregation of the Doctrine of Faith has affirmed that with regard to credibility of the apparitions in questions, all should accept this declaration that was dated by the bishops of the former Yugoslavia.